Justice Department says this will effectively sunset TikTok.
But TikTok is not threatening to shut down starting Sunday. The Supreme Court may make a decision to uphold the TikTok ban in the U.S. TikTok's parent company now forced to either sell to an American buyer or the government are now using the app and its software. Though the restaurant may choose to consider closing, saw new success in infiltrating the TikTok footprint video. She's so crazy. Keep your face up the mess. We also talked to Southern Chicago today, who's TikTok to make a living here, now trying to figure out their next steps if it shuts down.
Watch breaking news on YouTube. Subscribe to ABC 7 Chicago Eyewitness News.
The right partner can turn every challenge into mission accomplished.
Robinhood Gold members get an IRA transfer boost of 2%. When you transfer in an IRA and old 401k April 30th, Robinhood Gold will boost it by 2%.
It's a story that's rocked the social media sphere. The Supreme Court now upholding a law banning TikTok nationwide. 22 News reporter Victoria Buddy joins us live in studio with what this means for frequent users.
Yara, the days of countless scrolling could soon come to an end if TikTok is not sold to an American company by Sunday.
What? TikTok must not go down.
It is controlled by Beijing. So if we're sold firewall network.
A dark future for TikTok if it's not sold to a U.S. parent company by Sunday. The U.S. Supreme Court upholding a law banning the app in the U.S., citing the ban law does not violate the First Amendment, meaning 170 million users could have a lot more time on their hands. However, President Biden emphasizing it's not the end of this battle. President-elect Trump claims he plans to save the app once he enters office. However, he first wants to review the situation. This as TikTok CEO is expected to attend inauguration Monday.
I want to thank President Trump for his commitment to work with us to find a solution that keeps TikTok legal in the United States.
The White House says Biden does not have plans to save the app, although the president does have the power to invoke a one-time 90-day delay under the law.
It feels like we're losing, community.
Rest assured, we will do everything in our power to ensure our platform thrives as your online home for limitless creativity and discovery.
If banned experts say new users will no longer be able to download TikTok on Apple or Google app stores. Those who have the app might be able to use it, but without security updates, which means this could cause the app to glitch or stop working.
TikTok CEO is among other top tech executives who are planning to attend inauguration Monday. The others, Elon Musk, Meta CEO Mark Zuckerberg, and Amazon's Jeff Bezos. Working for you, Victoria Buddy, 22 News.
Impending change in the White House also leaves the fate of TikTok in question tonight. After the Supreme Court upheld a law that would ban the app used by half the country, justices issued the ruling this morning just 2 days before the ban is set to take effect. President Biden signed the bipartisan ban last year, but now says that enforcement will be up to the Trump administration. TikTok says it has no idea what would happen if it violates the ban. In a statement late tonight, the company says unless it gets more definitive answers, it'll be forced to go dark on January 19th, which is Sunday. Now, KDK's Ricky Sayer spoke with an information security expert about the implications of a ban and talked with a local TikToker about where content creators are trying to direct their followers.
If you scroll across TikTok right now, you'll find a lot of posts with people saying goodbye. So many of them have found community on the app. It's part of what's making it tough for them to leave the app in the past.
What in the...
Some people see Pittsburgh Hills and think, well, the hill. Ellen Coates sees content.
Pittsburgh has a lot of them, and the first one I did, it became viral.
Under the Pittsburgh Hills handle, Coates now has 65,000 TikTok followers and 1.4 million likes.
It's really a lot of fun.
Oh, God!
They're so steep and so scary.
Prepared for a potential TikTok shutdown, she's ready to say goodbye to that following and over to other apps.
change is inevitable, and I knew that something was gonna happen.
Many others are far less ready to let go.
Some people have their livelihoods based off of it. I know that, and I feel bad for them.
The Supreme Court Friday upheld a law that bans TikTok on the grounds it could pose national security risks because it is a China-based company. Duquesne University Chief Information Security Officer Tom Davis can understand why.
But for those of us in cybersecurity, it deeply concerns me, and certainly, for folks who are using it, I'm worried about their information, how the Chinese government may or may not be using it.
He also worries about how they could use it to sway public opinion. He says the difference between TikTok and American-based apps like Facebook or X is that the Chinese government has the legal authority to see the data of their tech companies.
They simply ask, and they are given.
Some TikTok users have already migrated to another China-based app, Redmond.
I worry that we're just trading one evil for another.
To avoid playing social media whack-a-mole, he says the government should look at banning other sites based in countries that are adversarial with the U.S.
Our national security is of the utmost importance. We need to take it seriously.
There's so many people that share our data, and so I don't know, any different.
Coatson says she's not planning to move to Red Note. She says it would just be too much effort to start all over. Dugas says he's already heard of people planning to evade the ban by using a VPN to digitally pretend they are in another country. Importantly, he says it just creates more risk. Reporting in downtown, Ricky Sayer, KDK TV News.
And Toasty, Thomas is breaking.
Thanks, Tom.
Huzzah!
The U.S. Supreme Court has upheld a law effectively subjecting TikTok to a national ban Sunday. TikTok creators are sharing their reactions. The massively popular social media platform that is used by roughly half the country will be shut down, unless there's an 11th hour lifeline from President-elect Donald Trump, who has said he can reach a deal to rescue the app. In a ruling issued Friday, the justices concluded that the law isn't in direct conflict with the First Amendment because it's aimed at TikTok's ownership. The law directs ByteDance, the app's parent company, to sell TikTok by January 19th. If not, web hosting services and mobile app stores will be barred from carrying TikTok. The Hollywood Reporter spoke to TikTok creators and asked how they're feeling about the Supreme Court's decision.
They're really officially banning TikTok. I am speechless. I could cry right now, but I'm keeping it together.
Shock is how I feel.
Unfortunately, I think it was expected. But I don't think it's fair. I don't think it's a fair interpretation of the Constitution. I think the TikTok ban is a violation of free speech.
It just feels really frustrating because I feel like over the past couple weeks especially, there have been so many people, creators, fans of creators, voicing their opinions on this and trying to make sure that the app stays in the US. So it's frustrating because it feels like they're just not listening to the creators and the fans of creators, and people are just putting in so much effort. So it's sad, but still trying to remain hopeful.
The CEO of TikTok, Shou Chu, gave users some hope when he shared a video in response to the Supreme Court's decision on Friday.
I want to thank President Trump for his commitment to work with us to find a solution that keeps TikTok available in the United States. This is a strong stand for the First Amendment and against arbitrary censorship.
He ended the video like this.
Rest assured, we will do everything in our power to ensure our platform thrives as your online home for limitless creativity and discovery, as well as a source of inspiration and joy for years to come.
A ban would disrupt the income streams of hundreds of thousands of creators. Some spoke to THR about how the ban will affect them.
This is going to affect our bottom line because TikTok is our biggest following. We have almost 500,000, and that's a big deal. We've built a community on that platform, and now you're taking that away, and we're just relying on YouTube and Instagram and Snapchat as our full number. And when you lose 500,000 of anything, it's going to make a big dent in your business.
It's going to hurt me financially. It was a part-time job for me, but it helped me make ends meet and be able to save money, so I will definitely be hurting, unfortunately. But again, with all of the thousands of people, it's hard to just think of myself. There are like single moms that were using it. So it's just really sad all around.
As for how those who financially relied on TikTok can move forward, social media experts, as well as the creators themselves, stress the importance of diversifying your revenue streams.
It doesn't matter if you have a business that relies on TikTok or not. If you are a business owner and 50 or 80% of your revenue is coming from one single source, you need to diversify and think of other ways.
Go to YouTube and go to Facebook because those are the two highest paid platforms.
The best thing that you can do if you're a creator right now is to own your own platforms. I started off as a blogger, so I know it best. Like, have your own website, have your own email list, have your own text message list.
For the latest updates on the TikTok ban, go to thr.com. For the Hollywood Reporter News, I'm Tiffany Taylor.
Verizon is bringing the Super Bowl to 30 cities across the country with an experience like no other. Verizon Super Bowl Fan Fest, right on your home field. You win. Get your tickets today. Visit VerizonFanFest.com.
Now, when the app does go dark, it'll have big impacts on not just those who doom scroll, to use a phrase coined by users themselves. But right behind me are TikToks, the Des Moines Playhouse that have culminated millions of views. Now, the community theater took to the app a few years ago to market their shows, and it worked. The marketing coordinator says to date, they've brought in 14,000 followers. Those users actively want to know more about the productions. As for what's next, it's exploring other apps.
Going forward, we'll start going back into the apps that we already have, like Facebook and Instagram. Those have lots of traction for us right now, especially on Instagram. That's where we have some of our sweet spots. And then, of course, Facebook, we have our older audiences that just love to see what's going on.
The Playhouse adds TikTok has also been a chance for their own cast to bond, making videos between performances and flexing their creative muscles.
Jenny, creators use this as creativity, a full-time job, or another form of income. I talked with a couple of local TikTok users and content creators in the CSRA, and they said they are sad to see this app go.
One creator, Devin Johnson, has been working to get to where he is now since 2021 and doesn't want to start the whole process over that has given him many opportunities.
TikTok is so easy to get your information, get your videos out nationally, locally, with other platforms that you're not supposed to use. So now that it does go far, like I'm gonna have to start from scratch. Like, for me, it's like I'm trying out different programs and organizations. And they see the 38,000 followers, they see the almost 5 million likes. They're like, I want to work with this guy.
Another creator, Daniel Browning, is worried because right now there is no other app that reaches people from all over the world in the way TikTok does. And he has been able to share his love for dance to many.
As an artist, most artists probably agree, without social media, it's very, very hard to have your work seen at all. And even through other platforms, most of us struggle. Have opportunities to be on show the appearances of works of artists. Don't say anything, people dance, all these different things, and a lot of that stemmed from that.
Johnson and Browning credit TikTok with helping them both get to where they are in their current careers, and that it has done the same for many others.
Posted a video about J. Cole. I apologize to J. Cole. That video went mega viral. My boss now called me at the time and was like, you got the job. That's the next day. So like I got my job off of TikTok.
The fact that there's something that is out there that's allowing us to not only have fun doing it, but providing for our families, it's been an absolute blessing.
For now, both plan to head to other apps to post their content and hope that something will be able to save TikTok. Back to you.
Only through Monday, enjoy deep discounts up to 35% off during Raymore and Flanagan's Super Weekend Sale.
Here you go, miss. Now what?
Have you heard of carparts.com? Check this out.
They have over 1 million quality parts
That are guaranteed to fit
at incredible prices.
and hassle-free returns.
I guess you didn't need my help after all.
No, I just needed carparts.com.
Available at your fingertips 24/7.
Now that's my speed.
Taking that away,
I feel like it's taking away one of our First Amendment rights for starters, but also it's just a space where we're able to be ourselves.
And TikTok influencers here in the Triad have mixed feelings about the fate of this popular social media app.
Fox 8's Justin Lundy joins us here in the studio tonight after speaking with big and small influencers today. Justin, what was the general consensus?
That no matter what or how you look at it, the fate of this app will leave somebody upset, but one thing's for sure, if the app is shut down this weekend, the livelihoods of some social media influencers could be ripped away. What type of chicken is that?
Silky. I've never sat in like this.
Showing off her pet chicken to millions of TikTok users. This is one of Asheboro native Jen Hamilton's most liked videos on the app, racking up more than 5 million likes.
I got on TikTok back in 2020 when the world kind of shut down, and I was kind of looking just for something to watch. So I was just watching like funny chicken videos or funny cat videos or something like that. But it soon became much more.
Hamilton says she's a labor delivery nurse and will produce educational videos on TikTok and grew a following of more than 3 million people over the past 5 years. But with the ban on the popular social media app looming, Hamilton says she feels at ease.
I've always said I'm here for a good time and not a long time. So I'm just grateful for everything that I've been able to do through TikTok. So I have such peace about it no matter what happens. I think there's a lot of people who are absolutely devastated because they counted on TikTok.
North Carolina A&T State University sophomore Sela Longchamp says she's one of the TikTok influencers who relies on the app for income by simply documenting what happens on campus.
So TikTok has allowed me to make a livelihood for myself by being a college student. It's hard for any of us to actually have jobs because we are in school. Taking that away, I feel like it's taking away one of our First Amendment rights for starters, but also it's just a space where we're able to be ourselves.
Meanwhile, some businesses like The Quarter, a bar in downtown Greensboro, benefited from influencers simply taking videos of their decorative interior and putting them on the map.
TikTok helped us out a lot when people find out about us for the first, we've been almost a year now. So TikTok and Instagram helped us get those extra followers that are new to the area.
President Joe Biden says he won't seek to enforce a January 19th ban on TikTok due to legislation passed last year. But there's no telling if the app's owner, ByteDance, will shut it down come Sunday. As Americans wait on the fate of TikTok, Hamilton hopes social media influencers have a backup plan.
Because any of the social media apps at any moment could go away. And I think that as a creator, it's important to make sure that you're not wholly trusting one app to be there forever.
More than 170 million Americans use TikTok, and again, if the expected shutdown happens, the social media app could go dark on Sunday. Katie?
All right.
We, the members of Family Tech Support, didn't volunteer. We were chosen to be a round-the-clock hotline. We get slammed with a ton of screenshots all at once on Grandma's iPhone. We explain, then repeat. I never click on anything weird. Dad had downloaded the internet, I think. Mom's back is losing it. Flashing storage almost full. Just the usual madness right before dinner gets cold. We're no tech gods. But Clean My Mac is here to tidy up this family tech chaos.
Now all in with Kayla. Your dinners and your Macs. With 40% off the spring shop right now at Hobby Lobby, a total refresh has never been easier. Make your space inviting, make it comforting, and make it your own. Head to Hobby Lobby and take 40% off the spring shop today.
The TikTok ban has been unanimously upheld by the Supreme Court. The federal law says the app will be banned starting Sunday unless it is sold by its China-based parent company, ByteDance. It does not seem to be any sale imminent. The court holds the risk to national security due to its ties to China outweigh concerns about free speech infringement. And experts say once the law takes effect, the app will not disappear from existing users' phones, but new users won't be able to download it. The law was the culmination of a years-long saga over the app. Thanks for joining us for Fox 44 News. I'm Marshall Keeley. Despite the Supreme Court's decision, the law must be enforced by the president to take effect. But both the Biden and Trump administrations are showing signs they'll hold back. Fox 43 City Compton spoke to cybersecurity officials and explains what users should know until the fate of the app is determined when the president-elect takes office.
A looming TikTok ban has users scrambling to find app alternatives, but a lack of presidential enforcement is holding the ban in legal limbo.
The data that you're sharing is still the reason the ban was put into place.
The Biden administration has already signaled it would not enforce the law, which goes into effect Sunday. Now all eyes are on President-elect Trump, who believes he can negotiate a new deal after he takes office.
We will put measures in place to keep TikTok from going dark. In the legislation allows for an extension as long as a viable deal is on the table.
The uncertainty is pushing some users to look for loopholes, which cybersecurity expert Scott Davis says can lead to even more dangerous data breaches.
You're going to see cyber criminals exploit the user's emotional connection to the app to create fake links, imposter apps, misleading ways to get back onto TikTok, and ultimately tricking users to downloading malicious software, putting data and their devices at risk.
Davis advises users to check the legitimacy of apps or workarounds like VPNs before downloading.
And actually understand what you're signing up for.
If President-elect Trump doesn't enforce the ban, the issue of user security still stands.
When we keep the data inside the United States, there's protections that you have as a U.S. citizen.
Davis warns even with a new owner, the security threat isn't solved.
When you post data online, you're posting a puzzle piece of who you are.
The use of multiple social media platforms paints a pretty clear picture of some.
And it's all things that we share on these platforms without thinking twice, because we're excited to share that we got a new puppy. Oh, my favorite password is my puppy.
Reminding consumers to be conscious while the uncertainty of TikTok's future continues.
As long as you understand that risk, share your data, do what you want to do. But there is inherent risk with cybersecurity.
Sydney Nauman, Fox 43 News.
TikTok says it will be forced to go dark on January 19th unless the Biden administration provides some type of guidance after the Supreme Court's ruling. Content creators reacting to the news earlier today, saying it's a sad day.
I've been speaking to a lot of friends in this industry, kind of people that post on TikTok, and it all feels that our voice is kind of being taken away just like that. And so it's kind of hard to grapple with, but we're trying to stay optimistic here.
Now, the Biden administration says they are leaving it up to President-elect Donald Trump to enforce the law. Trump speaking with China's president earlier today, shortly before the Supreme Court made its decision. He says, quote, "The call was a very good one for both China and the USA. It is my expectation that we will solve many problems together and starting immediately. We discussed balancing trade, fentanyl, TikTok, and many other subjects." Now, U.S. presidents do not have the power to overturn Supreme Court rulings, but Trump could try to push Congress to repeal the law or try delaying it from taking effect.
Ohio's Republican.
For the ones who get it done, the most important part is the one you need now, and the best partner is the one who can deliver. That's why.
Well, Ed and Maria, TikTok has made it easier for business owners to build community and talk directly to their customers. But with the app going away, they're concerned revenue will follow.
There's everything from like dry pantry goods to hosting supplies.
In just 2 years, Maria Kolalanja has been able to launch her dream business right in the North End.
It's beyond my wildest dreams, but I feel like it was all what was meant to happen.
But this dream wouldn't have been possible without the community she built on TikTok.
Truthfully, it wasn't something I was trying to do. I just kind of wanted to meet new people and build a community, and so I put this video out there and it went viral.
The app has been a launching pad for countless entrepreneurs to turn their ideas into full-blown careers. But that could all be ending with the Supreme Court upholding Congress's ban of the app, citing concerns about data collection and national security.
People should be concerned in general when they're using apps.
Northeastern University professor David Choffman says data collection leading to targeted ads are mostly harmless, but there's the possibility for companies to drive up prices, lower credit scores, or even increase insurance premiums based off your data and online habits.
That's the problem with data privacy, is that things that we don't care about today, we don't know how we're going to care about them in the future. We also don't know how companies might monetize that data in the future in ways that harm us.
But he admits the type of data collection TikTok does is no different from other apps like Instagram or Facebook. The only difference he could see is that TikTok is owned by a China-based company called ByteDance.
When it was going to U.S. companies, I guess there was no concern, but all of a sudden it's going to a company that's based in another country, and now they have a concern.
Professor Choffman says instead of banning apps, he would like to see Congress develop stronger privacy laws that gives people the right to have their data protected. We're live in the newsroom. Danae Bucci, WCBB News Center 5.
Tonight, millions of TikTok users are preparing to say goodbye to the social media app. This after the Supreme Court cleared the way for a ban to take effect on Sunday.
This morning, the court rejected an appeal from TikTok's owners, claiming the controversial ban violates the First Amendment. Now, justices sided with the Biden administration, which had warned the app posed a grave national security threat because of its ties to China. The Biden administration says it does not plan to enforce the ban and will leave that up to President-elect Trump.
TikTok users have flocked to the platform expressing outrage. Many of them were hoping the court would delay the ban.
Many have said they rely on the app for extra income, and with the app going away is going to hurt them financially.
News Fishing Garza spoke with a couple of local creators about their concerns with the upcoming ban.
It's changed my life, like, for real.
An app that started back in 2016
I want to make myself completely transparent.
is ending after cultivating billions of users around the world.
TikTok was where I had my first viral video.
Jumpstarting the careers of many, like Noah Orion, who has grown his audience on the app to more than 127,000, creating what he calls the wall of sound. It's a wall of speakers that has grown with every 1,000 followers he gets.
Just watering my giant wall of speakers.
And even though he's been using the app for years, Orion says he isn't sad about the ban because it means that the people looking for his content on the app will now be spread to other platforms.
TikTok seems to have a fan base that is super fast to follow to an account, but honestly doesn't have as much of an attention span as, say, Instagram fans or Facebook users or YouTube users. As a personal creator, it doesn't help us much. We want people actually paying attention to what we're putting out into this, whole plethora of videos that we create.
For many people, scrolling through the app is just a way to pass the time. But for some creators, it's also a lifeline.
I'm kind of saddened by it.
Ross Lindsay, otherwise known as Fish Bloopers to more than 30,000 people on TikTok, says he started his journey as a content creator about a year ago.
Let's go fishing.
And while he is on other apps, he says he enjoys TikTok and the positive impact it's had on his life.
But it really changed my life. It let me put a little bit of extra money towards my card payment.
After hearing about the ban, Lindsay says positive messages have been pouring in about his content.
Comments that say, you're the reason I went and got a fishing line. And things like, I didn't even know there was fish in the Spokane River.
One of the highlights from his time on the app is the awareness he's brought to conservation in the Northwest.
That wasn't my goal going in. It was just something that happened. And getting to partake in that was really cool.
And while the future of TikTok is uncertain, both creators say they will continue to post on other apps for those that enjoy their content.
Get outside, do something active.
Christian Garza, Prem 2 News.
See that guy? That used to be me. Overweight, tired all the time, flabby and unfulfilled. So I got to work researching what could possibly be the cause of my low energy, fatigue, cold hands and feet, and my poor performance in the gym. For the last 10 years since I got my degree in neuroscience from Duke University, I've been obsessing over reading the scientific research to find that special edge over everyone else. Do you want to know what I found? My body wasn't circulating my blood flow properly. And blood flow, it turns out, is the key driver of nutrient delivery in the body. Once I corrected this with a couple key natural ingredients, everything changed. Within just a few months, I had turned my health around. The biggest secret that I discovered in the journey to heal myself was this. Nature has provided us with everything that we need. You see, you need your circulatory system to naturally optimize your blood flow so it can shuttle all the critical vitamins and minerals around your body. These are the raw materials that your body needs to be able to function at maximum capacity. When these nutrients are shuttled properly with good blood flow, your energy shoots through the roof, and you feel incredible. You feel like yourself again. When all this happens just from a couple easy tweaks to naturally optimize your blood flow, you realize how insane it was that you weren't in control of your destiny before. It feels freaking incredible. It's like someone breathed life back into your body. For boosting blood flow naturally, 3 key pillars of natural compounds are of paramount importance. Number 1, human research out of Albany College found that the simple combination of vitamin C and garlic together produced an instant whopping 200% increase in the body's natural NO production. Number 2, another important find is that the little-known ingredient horse chestnut extract can massively boost NO.
The Supreme Court today upheld a federal law banning the social media app TikTok beginning Sunday. That is, unless it's sold by its China-based parent company. The Supreme Court says the risks to national security posed by its ties to China overcome some concerns about limiting free speech in the app. The app also catapulted many to fame, including a local influencer with millions of followers.
KXAN's Barrett Tryon got some insights from that popular Central Texas content creator and what she thinks about the court's decision.
I'm pretty shocked. I feel like I probably haven't accepted the reality.
Jane Cohen has more than 168,000 followers on TikTok, with people following her adventures as a food blogger in the Austin restaurant scene.
It was such a great platform for small businesses and local restaurants. I had so many videos go viral on TikTok on our local mom and pops, and they would just be flooded with business, and it's going to be devastating to see that taken away.
With more than 170 million users in the U.S., TikTok gains popularity, especially among teens.
Hi everyone, the show here.
News of the Supreme Court's decision pushed the company's CEO to post on the platform to say he's hopeful what President-elect Trump can do to keep the app from going dark.
To all American users, thank you for making our TikTok community such a rich and vibrant space, for surprising and delighting us every day.
Austin is home to one of the offices for the company, with space inside the Chase building at 6th and Lavaca. Their other offices are located here at 3rd and Colorado in downtown Austin. They moved in those offices last summer and occupy some of the top floors of the building. The company website currently lists 33 local openings. One employee told KXAN there are no plans to close the offices even if a ban went into effect. In the meantime, Co says the writing is on the wall for fellow creators.
Because they are doing a lot of content on that platform, and with that going away, I think a lot of them will lose, some work.
As the clock tick-tocks for the future of TikTok. In Austin, Barrett Tryon, KXAN News.
And President-elect Trump had called on the court to keep the ban on hold until after he takes office on Monday. He has also said he plans to save the company, but has not yet explained how.
Stretching will not make you flexible, and it will not eliminate your recurring injuries. Stretching will relax your muscles and make you pause in the moment, but it will not make you strong, mobile, or resilient. You need to strengthen your joints, build strength through a full range of motion, and build the strength to move out of alignment. This means not only will your tightness and recurring injuries disappear now, but you will have the resilience to prevent them from constantly coming back. My name is Barney Moves, and here at Moves Method, we are the leading mobility experts that elite athletes, fitness enthusiasts, and performance-driven people turn to when tightness, stiffness, and injuries come in the way of their physical progress. We don't focus on temporary relief. We don't rely on stretching, foam rolling, or tedious activation drills. Our approach is real mobility training that builds lasting resilience. Our system, the 3-step Moves Method, will strengthen your joints, ligaments, and tendons. It will build strength through your full range of motion, and it will help you stay active and reduce setbacks. And it's proven. It's helped thousands of athletes who were told that they would never move freely again. Fitness enthusiasts with recurring injuries, and people who thought that they were too old or too injured to train hard again. Like Drew, who is a desk worker, Junaid, who is a boxer, and Luke, who is a lawyer. And 10,000 plus other students in 41 countries worldwide. Here's how it works. Step 1, we will strengthen your joints so you can move with complete freedom. Step 2, we build strength through your full range of motion. And step 3, we train you to move safely out of alignment. This leads to lasting mobility, fewer injuries, and freedom to stay active and do what you love until the day you die. We've taken all the guesswork out for you. You just need to plug our proven system into your daily routine and instantly start seeing results. You don't need a lot of space, you don't need equipment, and you only need 15 minutes a day. And this is something that will help you regardless of your age, injuries, or starting point. Right now, for a limited time, there is 75% off, and you get lifetime access for cheaper than a single PT session. But it's ending soon, so click the link below to go to the next page, and it will show you exactly how you can fit this mobility toolkit into your life effortlessly. Within your first week, you'll notice less tightness in your muscles, stronger, more resilient joints, and fewer injuries and setbacks. For a limited time, you can try the 3-step Moves Method system for 14 days, and if you feel like you don't get stronger, if your muscle tightness doesn't ease up, email us and we will give you your money back. You be the judge. So click the link below to learn more and get started today.
Time is running out on TikTok, at least stateside. Popular social media app set to go dark in 2 days unless its Chinese owner divests from the company.
So this morning, the U.S. Supreme Court upheld a congressional ban on the app. The bipartisan law passed last year
there, and it banned TikTok unless its Chinese owner sold the company, citing a national security threat. The law threatens to fine tech companies like Apple, Google, and Oracle if they keep offering download, software updates, and data storage for TikTok. The decision impacts about 170 million Americans who use TikTok.
The Supreme Court said that this is not about flexibility, this is not a violation, and that there is an interest in which the government does have in protecting its citizens and its data, and this law does stand.
The Biden administration says it will be up to President-elect Trump's team to enforce the law, and earlier today, Trump wrote on Truth Social that everyone must respect the Supreme Court's decision, but he also says to stay tuned for his decision in the not-too-distant future. And coming up here on News 5 at 5:30, our Nadine Abasada brings us the story of a local TikToker who's in limbo right now ahead of Monday's planned ban.
You know what I hate more than anything? Terrible Chinese products. Did you know that those little things would shatter if you drop them in your shoulder height? So this is Stop Box, and the best part about it, it's all mechanical. I don't need a Stop Box. I just need to teach my kids gun safety.
How are you going to teach them when it's real? Or if I was my friends over and I didn't have enough time to teach?
Okay, bud. I would never lock up my gun. If I need my gun, every second counts. I keep it in my drawer.
Nothing is fast.
Time is running out on TikTok, at least stateside. Popular social media app set to go dark in 2 days unless its Chinese owner, divests from the company.
So this morning, the U.S. Supreme Court
I'm just going to level with you. I've been making YouTube videos for about 3 years now, and during that time, I've gotten recommendations for hundreds of thousands of different topics to do videos on. Some of them I've done, some of them I haven't gotten around to yet, some of them I'll never do because they don't interest me, and then there's another category of topics that I've actively avoided because, to be honest with you, they intimidate me because the stories are that incredible, and I'm worried that I'm not going to do them justice. This is one of those. Today we're talking about one of the greatest Marines of all time, an undefeated boxer with a 100% knockout range and probably the greatest machine gunner to ever live, John Bassett. He's easily one of the most recognizable and renowned warriors in American military history, and for good reason. He has received the Medal of Honor and the Navy Cross, and the only reason he got the Navy Cross is because he quit letting people get the Medal of Honor twice. And we're going to get his incredible story right after a word from our sponsor. Yeah, babe, what's up?
Hey, I need a box.
Okay, I can go get you one.
Perfect.
Alright, I'm good now. I'll be able to bring it. Alright,
One hour later.
Where's that boom box that I asked for?
oh, it's right here. I got it for you.
What is this?
Boombox.
No, I want something to play music with.
That box. Yeah, I got this.
Okay, we'll go to the store and get me a boom box so I can listen to music.
Can I keep this one still?
Fair.
This video is brought to you by Delete Me, okay? Super simple business model. You give them money, they turn around and they make sure that online data brokers are not selling your personal information online. Okay, here's the deal. Pretty much anytime you use a free service on the internet, you click that little box that says, I agree to the terms and conditions. You basically just agree to allow them to harvest as much of your personal information as humanly possible. They then turn around and sell that to online data brokers, and that's how they can afford to offer you a free service. But when you have Delete Me, they go and they monitor all of these online data brokers for your personal information, and then if they find it, they submit all the opt-out forms on your behalf, so they have to take down and stop selling that information. So when you buy Delete Me, you're not actually buying anything, you're just buying your way out of all the negative consequences of all the free shit that you've already got. And because they continue to monitor those data brokers, you're buying yourself out of all the future negative consequences of all the free shit that you haven't even gotten yet. So if you want to give Delete Me a try, there's going to be a link and a discount code down below. Let's get back to the video.
That client review was brutal.
We're gonna be underwater from leaks.
I'm already so pruny.
This is fixable. Just use Grammarly. We'll crush it.
I'm already crushed. I cannot be crushed any further. You spoke too soon.
The finance team is panicking. If we can't get approval, we can't make our numbers. Okay. First, use Grammarly's AI to sound confident so the team doesn't think you're drowning. Now let's get to that proposal.
Where do we even start? I hated it. I think we broke our CEO's brain.
His phone isn't even plugged in.
Let's start here. Grammarly can look through the proposal to find what's missing. Wow. Like in the intro, you need to show the clients what's at stake.
That took me 2 days to write. I had to ignore like 18 pings from apps that focus on it.
Well, now it takes one click. And look, Grammarly knows the audience is non-technical, so it can take out the jargon.
Cool.
And make the benefits easier to understand.
Wow, I think our clients are gonna love this.
I'm gonna resubmit it. And with Grammarly working across 500,000 apps and websites, we'll never be underwater again.
It's approved, I'll help with you. But, okay, I think 8 exclamation marks might be overdoing it. Grammarly says 1 is enough.
Well, I appreciate that, Grammarly, but this is an 8 exclamation situation.
Yeah, totes. Download Grammarly for free.
Current owners and lessees and eligible for a bank this low mileage lease on this 2025 Cadillac Lyric Luxury One for around $519 per month.
John Baxter was born on November 4th, 1916 in Buffalo, New York, and spent his entire childhood growing up in Raritan, New Jersey. He was the sixth of 10 children with 2 older brothers, and both of his parents were first-generation immigrants and had just moved here from Italy. And like pretty much all World War II vets that we've never talked about, he grew up in poverty during the Great Depression. Despite that, his father truly believed that America was the greatest place on earth. It was the land of opportunity, and he instilled that in all of his kids. Growing up with 2 older brothers in New Jersey, John got really tough really quick as a kid. He was extremely stubborn. He rode that line between bravery and stupidity with everything he did, and he was not particularly good at school. He could never pay attention in the classroom, but he excelled in anything athletic, and he never shied away from the fight. When he was 7 years old, he famously decided that he was going to make a 1,000-pound bull that had nearly killed 3 grown men previously, his pet.
It's a bold strategy, Cotton. Let's see if it pays off for him.
So 7-year-old John, with zero fear in his body, hops in this pen with this bull and goes to pet it. The bull charges him, he dodges it. The bull charges him again, he dodges it again. And finally the bull just kind of squares up with him. And John slowly walks up to this bull. And right as he's about to place his hand on the bull's head, right between his horns, the bull rears down and launches John 20 feet through the air, and he lands flat on his back. Luckily, John makes it out of the pen okay. Needless to say, that bull did not become his pet, but it goes to show that he is either gifted with an extreme amount of bravery or stupidity, and only time is going to tell which one it is. Now, around this same point in his childhood, John and his brothers end up going to the local movie theater, and they watch a movie about a boxer. And this movie inspires John and his 2 older brothers to all want to become boxers, but the problem is, there's no boxing gym at Raritan. He can't afford any boxing equipment, so the 3 brothers just start trying to mimic the training from the movie. They all start jumping rope. The problem is, they don't have jump ropes and they can't afford it, so they start jumping rope with a clothesline. They started chopping wood with an old rusty axe they found. They start doing focus mitt drills with their bare hands because they can't afford any equipment. And this goes on for the rest of his childhood. Academically, John struggles in the classroom, and in school, he's not very popular either. And it's not that he's dumb. He can do everything. He can read, he can write, he can do math. He just can't stand sitting there for 6 to 8 hours a day looking at a chalkboard and some teacher droning on. He would zone out, and then next thing he knows, the bell would ring and class would be over, and he didn't pay attention to anything. Because of this, after he graduates from 8th grade, he informs his parents that he is not going to be attending high school, and he's going to go out and get a job and start contributing to the family. Because he's 14 at the time, there's not a whole lot of jobs he can do, so he gets the first one he can get his hands on as being a caddy at the local golf course. And at first, John absolutely loves it. He's outside, he's moving around, he's earning money to help his family. All these rich businessmen are giving him these huge tips because he does such a great job. And when he's not hauling golf clubs, he's hanging out at the golf course clubhouse with all these rich businessmen, and they end up teaching him how to gamble. And he gets really good at that, he starts making money doing that too. And this goes on for years, and as John turns 16 and then eventually 17, it's getting to the point where he can go out and get a real job. And John absolutely hates the notion of it. He resents the fact that society is telling him he has to go out and get some monotonous 9-to-5 job that he just has to do every single day for the rest of his life. In his mind, it's going to be just like sitting in that classroom, zoned out, and John doesn't know what to do because that's not what he wants in life. Not knowing what to do, John goes to his church, and he's praying about it, he's just sitting there, he's hanging out, he's thinking about what he wants to do for the rest of his life. While he's there, a Catholic priest by the name of Father Russo comes up and starts talking to John. You know, he's clearly troubled, wants to know if he can help, and John ends up asking Father Russo that he's known pretty much his entire childhood, like, hey, Father, you know, you were an athletic guy, you were in college, you could have been a doctor, you could have been a professional athlete, you had the whole world at your fingertips. How did you decide that you wanted to become a priest? And Father Russo told him that he just felt a calling, that that's what he was supposed to do, so he did it, and he told John that if he listened, God would probably give him a calling too.
So John takes that advice and he's trying to listen or look out for any sign that maybe God's going to give him. And then one day he has what he describes as a vision that he's supposed to become a warrior. And because of this, John joins the United States Army in 1934. Now the problem is, John doesn't really know what he wants to do in the Army, but he knows that his calling is to be a warrior, so he wants to be the biggest, baddest, most untouchable warrior on the battlefield, which is obviously being inside of a tank.
Best job I ever had.
The problem is that John thinks that being cooped up inside of a tank is going to be just like sitting inside that classroom, and he absolutely hates the notion. He wants to be outside, moving around, doing things that are physical, so he picks the next best thing on the battlefield, a machine gun. And this suits John for multiple reasons. One, he's kind of the bigger guy by the standards of the day, right? He's 5'9", but he's 185 pounds with almost no fat on him. And on top of that, he's been doing nothing but lugging around golf clubs for the past 4 years, giving him a ton of stamina, which is good news because he's going to need it, because the machine gun back in 1934 was the Browning 1917, which was a fucking machine gun that required 7 quarts of water to cool the barrel down. Between the gun and the tripod, the entire thing is 103 pounds, not including the ammunition. And John is absolutely obsessed with this gun. He knows absolutely everything about it. He knows where to place it on the battlefield, how to set it up, how to clear every different type of malfunction. They have competitions on how to disassemble and reassemble it and run a functions check completely blindfolded, and John wins those competitions every single time. After finishing his training, John gets shipped out to the Philippines, and he spends the next 3 years there between 1934 and 1937, and it kind of fucking sucks the entire time. Now, at this point in time, the geopolitical climate is absolutely heating up, and war could break out, and if that war breaks out, John is obviously here to defend the Philippines. And as far as John can tell, if war should break out, the Army's only plan is to have all of its troops retreat to a tiny island called Corregidor and try to hold that. Now, this is extremely disheartening to the point that it pisses John off, because remember, he's here to be a warrior. That's his higher calling in life. And now he's over here in the Philippines. It's hot. Everything's fucking wet all the time. There's fucking bugs everywhere. He's getting malaria. Everybody else is getting malaria. And he's sitting here just suffering, basically waiting for war to break out. And then when the war does break out, the first thing they're going to do is retreat. That's not what he signed up for. So this bothers John all the way down to his core the entire time that he's there. Despite that, he tries to make the best of it, which is really hard at times, because it's very clear to John that the Army either doesn't give a fuck about him or just doesn't have the funding to take care of him the right way, because they have basically nothing while they're there. They're living in these tiny little huts. They have very little supplies. They're literally having to eat goat half the time, which John said was absolutely disgusting. And on top of that, John absolutely hates the rainy season in the tropics, because he cannot stand the wool Army socks when they get wet on his feet. It drives him absolutely insane. It bothers him so much that it becomes a well-known thing in his unit that when you're gambling against John Barcelona, he is willing to accept dry cotton socks as currency to gamble with when you play against him, which is pretty much all he does the entire time that he's there. He's either sleeping, drinking, gambling, or trying to bang the locals like everybody else. He actually ends up falling in love with a local woman by the name of Lolita that he describes as the most beautiful woman in the world. So much so that he actually gets her name tattooed on it. The constant drinking and gambling gets old after a little while, so he decides that he's going to start training to box again. So he gets back to running, jumping rope, starts sparring with any other Army guy that's willing to spar with him, and then eventually he ends up taking his first fight in the Army for boxing. Takes his first match, goes in there, knocks the guy out in the first round, takes another match, knocks him out too. After a little while, he is the best boxer in his unit, and then he goes and competes, becomes the best boxer in the Army, and then he goes, competes again, knocking out the Navy's champion, becoming the best boxer in the U.S. military. Around this point in time, he ends up getting the nickname Manila John, and all the promoters back home hear about this badass over in the Philippines knocking everybody out, so he's getting letters from all these boxing promoters wanting him to come over and fight their pro champion over here, this pro guy over there. Basically, he's got a really good professional boxing career lined up the minute he goes back home. Eventually, he ends up beating everybody in the United States military, 19 wins, 19 knockouts, at which point he can either just wait and go back home and turn pro, or he can go up a weight class. He doesn't really want to do either, and his enlistment is coming to an end. John decides that he does not want to go up a weight class. He definitely does not want to re-enlist in the Army because these past 3 years have fucking sucked.
And he doesn't want to go back home and become a pro boxer because he doesn't think that that's the warrior calling that he had from his vision. So John finishes up his enlistment in 1937 and goes back home and moves in with mom and dad all over again. And he is right back at square one, not knowing what to do with the rest of his life. He goes right back to being a caddy at the golf course. And at this point, mom and dad are getting worried because, I mean, he's a 21-year-old man and this is the 1930s. He should be having kids by now. And he's over here working some part-time high schooler job. He needs to go and get a real job and make something of himself and start building a family. And while nobody's saying it out loud, John feels that constant pressure both from his family and his community, and he just doesn't know what to do. So he basically just goes back to what he was doing in the Philippines, right? He's carrying golf clubs during the day, he's gambling, he's drinking, and he is fucking everything that moves. You gotta realize, he's the 21-year-old Army veteran that just got back from the military. He's 185 pounds, built like a brick shithouse with 19 knockouts. He's seen as a very eligible bachelor by all the young ladies in town. So he's doing stuff with them. He's even banging the old widow that runs the flower shop down the street. I'm not kidding. So that's going on for a while. Then eventually his dad confronts him like, Johnny, what the fuck are you doing with your life? You need to get your shit together. So John is like, I know. So he goes, he gets a real job. He ends up being a delivery guy for a laundry service. He does that for a couple of months. Fucking hates every single second of it. But now mom and dad are proud of him. You know, he's gone out in the world. He's got a real job. He's doing the whole, you know, family thing. Soon he'll probably get a wife, settle down, have kids, do what, you know, you're supposed to do. He doesn't make it there very long. He ends up quitting because he just can't stand to do it. His parents are super disappointed right out of the gate, at which point John is like, you know, I'm going to move out. I'm going to go somewhere else. I'll go out on my own. So he moves to a different state, gets a job with the gas company. So he does that for like 6 months. He becomes one of the top employees at the company. He's getting along fine. He does the work really well, but he absolutely hates it. He doesn't feel like he's fulfilling his higher calling. And around this point in time, all the news is coming out about the massacre at Nanjing, Japan invading China, killing hundreds of thousands of innocent civilians. There's stories coming out about Japanese officers beheading innocent Chinese civilians until their arms are so fatigued that they can no longer lift up their swords. And this bothers John to his core because even though his time in the army wasn't great and he hated it the entire time, he still considered himself a professional and did not understand why another professional military would do that to innocent civilians. And with this, John has his second vision, basically a more clear version of his first vision. He is supposed to be a warrior, but he is supposed to fight the Japanese. And with this, he decides that he's going to re-enlist in the United States military, but this time he's not going with the Army. He told his mother, and I quote, "The Army's too soft, Mom. I'm going with the Marines."
At Sierra, Jack discovered great pickleball gear at incredible prices.
That's yours.
Which led to another discovery. His dad does care.
Got it.
How about pickleball?
Come on!
Discover top brands at unexpectedly low prices. Sierra, let's get moving.
911, what's your emergency?
My Aunt Lucy has gone missing.
Can you provide a description?
A bear.
A bear?
Yes, we've lost a jungle bear in the jungle.
Okay, where was she last seen?
Harrington, what are you doing? I appear to be driving the boat.
Please remain calm.
You're breaking up.
Hello?
Nothing can go wrong now. Where are you, Aunt?
So in July of 1940, at the age of 23, John Basilone joins the United States Marine Corps. And you gotta realize, at this point in time, John is 23 years old and there's a draft going on, so pretty much everybody else that he's going through training with is some 18-year-old snot-nosed kid. And John is just, he's getting through. So he crushes basic training, goes off to machine gunner school for the Marine Corps, and while he's there, he just starts hustling all of his classmates. He sits there and very loudly and very vocally expresses frustration in his inability to disassemble and reassemble the machine gun, which obviously he knows how to do extremely proficiently, but he plays it off like he can. And then he suckers other young, cocky Marines in to a challenge of assembling and disassembling it and running a functions check, and whoever wins money. And then as soon as they put money on the table, he just takes everybody's shit, including their socks.
This is like the luck of the Irish, only I'm not Irish, so you figure it out.
So he gets done with training. He's older, he's more mature, he already knows everything. Very quickly, he ends up becoming a gunnery sergeant. He's in charge of 11 other men and 2 machine guns. And he takes being a leader very seriously. He makes all the men in his section train and retrain over and over and over again with the machine gun, how to set them up, where to set them up, absolutely everything, to the point that they are just as good as he is. Then they end up getting shipped out to Puerto Rico for amphibious landing training. He's back in the tropics, absolutely hates it. Everything's wet, his feet are wet, his socks are wet, there's fucking bugs everywhere. He doesn't like it there. He ends up training there for an entire year. And as per usual, when he's not training, they're going out, they're gambling, they're drinking, and they're fucking everything that moves. At this point in time, he becomes kind of infamous for every time he gets hammered, he turns his hat, also known as a piss cutter, sideways to let everybody know, hey, I'm fucking hammered. So after a year, they get done with training. They're just waiting on orders on where they're going to go. Paris Island is apparently full. So according to the rumors, the U.S. military has went out and built an entire new base for the Marines. And this base is fucking awesome. There's a new movie theater. There's an athletic facility. There's a new chow hall that serves steak and lobster and cake and ice cream every single day for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Everybody is fucking pumped because they've been hanging out in the tropics where it sucks, basically living in tents. And now they're finally going to go and get appreciated for the elite fighting unit that they are. So they get shipped out, they travel, they make it all the way to New River, North Carolina, where the new base is, and they get there, there's nothing there. There's like a couple of buildings for the officers, and then it's just a fucking swamp. They have no mission, there's no training schedule, they're literally just existing, living in tents in a swamp. Because at this point in time, America isn't in the war yet, so basically they're one of the most highly trained units that America has, but they have nowhere for them to go, so they basically just like set them off to the side and told them to go camp in a swamp for a while, and it sucks the entire time. So they're there for a couple months, and then they get word that they're going to a different new base, and this base surely is the base they were originally talking about, right? With the chow hall, the steak, and the lobster, and the cake, and the ice cream, and the athletic facility, and the new barracks. Everything's going to be awesome. The new base is actually ready. They ship out. It's a very short drive. They come to this new place, Camp Lejeune. Also, no buildings, just a fucking swamp. So now, morale amongst the men is at an all-time low. It absolutely sucks. John is trying to do everything he can to keep spirits up. He makes it standard practice that everybody under his command is going to learn boxing. He's going out, he's teaching his men how to box. The circus in town actually donates their old tent, and they set it up, and that becomes their new, like, Madison Square Garden. He's hosting fights. Boxing is, like, the only thing they have. But John doesn't really have any interest in boxing himself, and after the word got out that he's Manila John with 19 knockouts, not a lot of people wanted to box him anyways, so it works out. But there has been several occasions where a card game went wrong, and he got into a fight and knocked a couple of people out. And then they get a new commander that apparently is a badass, and one of the first things this commander does is calls John Barcelona into his office. Okay, this cannot be good. John is nervous. This guy is allegedly a hard ass. He's supposedly one of the most decorated men in the U.S. military at this point in time. He's got 2 Navy crosses. He's already served in Nicaragua. He served in the Banana Wars, and now John has to go talk to him, and he doesn't know why. So John walks into his office, and this guy is intimidating. He is built like a brick shithouse. He looks like a refrigerator with a smaller refrigerator on top of it, and that's his head. This dude's got the biggest barrel chest he's ever seen. His side profile is 2 feet thick. It's starting to make sense why this guy's nickname was Chesty. Yeah, John's new commander is the legendary Marine Chesty Puller. And Chesty lays into him immediately, like, I understand you knocked some people out after a card game. And he's like, yes, sir. And he goes, I understand you're some type of knockout artist. And he's like, yes, sir, I was 19-0 over in the Philippines when I was in the Army. Chesty, at this point, flips out. The Army? You were in the fucking Army!
You're getting soft, brother.
Now, obviously, I'm paraphrasing a little bit, but this conversation went something along the lines of, why don't you explain to me why I would let somebody softened by the United States Army lead my Marines into combat? I have heard nothing but bad things about you, John. You are a gambling womanizer that would sleep with 2 women at a time if you could afford it. At which point, John responds, and I quote, even when I can't afford it, sir. At which point, Chesty cracks a smile and says, God damn it, you're going to make a fine Marine. Pull up a seat. They have a cigar together and start drinking. And then Chesty has John tell him all about the Philippines. Yeah, John Barcelona is now homies with the most decorated Marine of all time.
I only have one rule. Stay out of the basement.
What do you got in the basement?
I can't talk about it quite yet.
There's something down there that will destroy the world.
Shortly after this, Japan attacks Pearl Harbor. They've committed the cardinal sin. They've fucked with America's boats. It is now game on. At this point in time, John's unit is one of the most highly trained units in the United States military, and they are immediately shipped out to Samoa on their way to the Pacific for more training. They spend about 4 months there. They train a bunch on amphibious landings, but they also train on jungle warfare, trying to focus in on what they know the Japanese like to do. They know that the Japanese like night fighting, so they get a bunch of nighttime combat training, and then they know that the Japanese also like to infiltrate behind enemy lines and pretend to be one of your guys eyes and then murder you in your sleep. So they develop a new system on how to make sure that somebody out in the darkness is actually one of your guys. Now the tricky part is you need to make sure that both members in this communication are both on the same page and they both know that they're not going towards an enemy. So you're going to shout out one word and they're going to respond back with another word that's the password. And the words that they choose are weather and clear, because apparently you can't say those words with a Japanese accent.
Clear? Clear? Clear. 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 Clear.
They get done training, then they're just told to board a ship. They're not even telling them where they're going. They get out to sea after like 2 days once it's no longer a security issue, and they tell everybody over the loudspeakers, we're headed to Guadalcanal in the Pacific. There's an airfield there that we have to take and defend. Now, John is going to kind of be in the second wave. He is not there when the Marines make their first landing on Guadalcanal on August 7th, 1942. Now, those Marines experience very little resistance at first, and then 2 days later on August 9th, the Japanese Navy rolls in on the naval detachment that had dropped off the Marines, and they attack them at night and catch them completely off guard, and they end up sinking 4 American cruisers, and the entire naval detachment is forced to retreat, stranding the Marines on Guadalcanal. So for about that first week, the Japanese Navy just shells the Marines with naval gunfire and then tries to starve them out. The first major battle is on August 20th at the Tenarue River, when 800 Marines go toe-to-toe with 900 Japanese, killing 800 Japanese and only losing 44 Marines in return. After this, the Japanese realize 2 things. A, they're going to have to up their game if they want to go toe-to-toe with the Marines. And B, Henderson Airfield is apparently very important to the United States war effort, and they have to take it back no matter what. Henderson Airfield has a ridge right next to it today that's known as Edson's Ridge because it was defended on September 12th by Edson's Raiders. Edson's Raiders is comprised of 840 Marines that go toe-to-toe with 3,000 Japanese soldiers led into battle by Major General Kiyotake Kawaguchi. Utilizing the high ground and effective machine gun fire, Edson's Raiders absolutely crushed Kawaguchi's men. Over the course of 3 days, the Marines lost 31 men and killed over 600 Japanese soldiers and wounded at least 600 more. To the Japanese, this was considered the first major defeat of their ground forces in over 2,000 years and brought immeasurable shame to that chain of command. General Kawaguchi is immediately relieved of command. His boss, General Hayotake, takes control, and it becomes his life's mission to win back Henderson Airfield to restore his honor. By August 18th, the United States Navy is able to punch through, and John and the rest of the 7th Marines show up to reinforce the Marines on Guadalcanal. Over the course of the coming days, they offload all of the 7th Marines onto Guadalcanal, but on September 23rd, before all of the Marines have disembarked from their ships, they get ambushed at the Medi-Cal River. Chesty Puller, hearing that some of his men are cut off and surrounded, commandeers the United States naval destroyer, the USS Ballard, takes it under his command, gets it as close as he can to their position, and calls in the naval gunfire on the enemy himself. He then loads up all the landing vessels that he has with as many Marines as he possibly can and begins leading them into the fight to save his men. And Chesty is right there leading from the very first Higgins boat, and it gets so bad from enemy gunfire coming in on these Higgins boats that the naval coxswain, the pilot of the ship, goes and starts turning the boat around, and all the other boats are going to start following, at which point Chesty orders him to keep going, and he fights him on it. Chesty pulls out his Colt 45 and says that he will shoot him himself if he doesn't steer that fucking boat to that beach. Chesty lands, goes out, saves his men. To be clear, John wasn't there during the actual battle, but he saw all of this unfold. He heard about it, and it reinforced everything that he thought and knew in his heart, that if he wanted to be a good leader, he had to lead from the front and be willing to risk himself for his men. So all the Marines get out on Guadalcanal. The biggest objective in the war right now is defending Henderson Airfield. This is the most important stretch of land on the planet at this point in time. So John and his 11 men are set up on this ridge right outside Henderson Airfield. They have 2 foxholes, 1 machine gun team in each, and they are covering a 2,500-yard span of the Marine front line, and they absolutely cannot allow the Japanese to get past it. On October 23rd, General Hayotake, who, remember, feels that he has been shamed by allowing his subordinate to lose to the Americans for the first time in 2,000 years, he is willing to die to win this fight, and he sends all the men that he has directly towards the Marine Corps front line. And hundreds of them are headed directly towards John Basilone and his 11 men. The Japanese soldiers headed towards John and his men were covered in leaves for camouflage, and there were so many of them that Basilone's men said it looked like the jungle itself was coming to eat them. And while that is horrifying, you have to remember that John and his men have 2 heavy machine guns with overlapping fields of fire and the high ground. It's going to take a literal army to uproot John and his men. John and his men start mowing down wave after wave of Japanese infantry, and they just keep coming because they are under the command of General Hayotake, and this man is willing to die to win his honor back, and he's willing to sacrifice all of his men as well. Not only are John and his men metaphorically stacking bodies, they're literally stacking bodies to the point that it actually becomes a legitimate problem John has to get out of the foxhole and push over piles of dead corpses because they're beginning to obstruct the view from his machine gun positions. They fight for hours, mowing down wave after wave of enemy, and by the end of the first day, John has lost 4 men and killed who knows how many Japanese in return. On the second day, they still weren't able to get past Barcelona and his men, but they were able to punch through the Marine Corps line on John's right flank, and they surrounded John and his men. Okay, so at this point, on one hand, this is a horrible situation to be in, but on the other hand, this is exactly the type of shit Marines are into. Okay, this is what they call a target-rich environment, and now that they're surrounded, the enemy doesn't have anywhere else to go but to fight them. This is exactly what they want. The only problem now is that the rest of the force is cut off from him, so he can't get any more ammunition or water for the guns, and to make things worse, he's been fighting for so long, his fucking wool socks are wet. So at this point, John's like, fuck it, I'm gonna go get the ammo myself. He takes off his boots, he takes off his wet wool socks, grabs a machete and his Colt 45 1911, and takes off through enemy lines to go get more ammunition and water for his men. John not only makes it through the enemy lines barefoot, he actually gets more ammo, more barrels, and more water for the guns, and makes it back to his men. And over the course of the next day, he does this 2 more times. John and his men continuing to fight the entire time, mowing down scores of enemy soldiers. But slowly, John starts losing more and more men. First it was 4, and then 2 more, and then he's lost 8 men, and then suddenly it was down to John and just 2 others. At this point, they had to improvise new tactics. They didn't have enough men to man 2 heavy machine guns. So John became the gunner, trying to make every single last round count. And then when John ran out of ammo on one gun, he would hop over to the other gun while his 2 men reloaded and refitted that initial gun, and they would just bounce back and forth fighting as long as they possibly could. This goes on for hours, and John and his men can't keep up. John would burn through all the ammunition in one machine gun before the next gun was ready. So John had to engage the enemy in hand-to-hand combat at their foxhole to buy his men more time to get the guns up. And then that goes on for hours. John Barcelona kills 38 enemy soldiers at or in his foxhole in close quarters combat, buying his men more time. And just as things are starting to look really, really dark, like this is going to be the end, dark, we're almost out of ammunition, we can't keep doing this, Chesty Polar comes through and rallies the Marines, pushes back the Japanese forces, and restores the initial line. Over the course of the entire battle, not just John's section alone, the Marine Corps had managed to kill 2,500 Japanese soldiers, forcing them into a retreat. General Hayatake again had been defeated, and this time the blame laid squarely on his shoulders, and because of this, he commits, can't say that word on YouTube, Anyways, by the time reinforcements get to Barcelona and his men, there is dead dudes absolutely everywhere. There's 38 of them in or around the foxhole. All of those kills were credited to Barcelona in close quarters combat, and his fields of fire look like the most aerodynamic mass grave you've ever seen. There were so many they quit counting after 150. For the next 18 days, the Marines launched counterattacks, chasing the retreating Japanese forces all over Guadalcanal before eventually kicking them off the island altogether. But the fight's not over yet. The Japanese are going to come back, and they're going to come back with everything they absolutely have. Off the coast of Guadalcanal is a bunch of Japanese battleships, and they are there to secure a route for more Japanese soldiers to make it onto the beach through landing craft. But this time, the U.S. Navy is going to surprise them in the middle of the night. There's this crazy battleship commander by the name of Willis Lee, a.k.a. Ching Lee, a 5-time Olympic gold medalist sharpshooter and tactical genius that has just pioneered and perfected the method of using radar to find targets for naval gunfire, giving them an unprecedented advantage in night fight. On the night of November 14th, he engages a Japanese battleship detachment with his ship, the USS Washington, sinking their flagship, the IJN Hiroshima. This forces the rest of the Japanese naval detachment to retreat, squashing any hope of Japanese reinforcements hitting the beach, effectively securing the island and turning the entire tide of the war in the Pacific.
A new series gives unprecedented access to an elite Mexican task force who capture American fugitives.
By January 1st, 1943, John and the rest of the 7th Marines were sent to Melbourne, Australia to recover from months of intense combat. And once the Marines get there, it turns into one gigantic party, because now the people of Australia have been living under the worry that the Japanese were going to invade them next. And now they're tucking their tail and they're running from the Marine Corps and the United States Navy. The Marines are heroes to every single person in Australia. The Australians were so grateful to the Marines, it said that there wasn't a single bar or home in Australia that wasn't open to a United States Marine. And they couldn't pay for one of their own drinks even if they wanted to. For an entire month, John Barcelona is wearing his piss cutter sideways, absolutely hammered. And then one day he wakes up at like noon, probably still half drunk, feels like he's been hit by a truck, and his arm is just absolutely on fire. So he sits up out of bed, he looks over at his arm is just all bandaged up, and he has no idea why or what happened. And he's like worried that he like did something stupid, he jumped off a roof, broke his arm, something happened. He doesn't really know. regardless of what happened or how hurt he is, he can't really do anything about it, and he's starving, and he can do something about that, so he doesn't even bother to look at his arm or see what's underneath that bandage. He just staggers out of the barracks and goes to the chow hall. So he's in the chow hall getting food, and another Marine comes up to him and is like, yeah, death or dishonor, right? And John Vassel's like, what? He goes, your tattoo that you got last night. Everybody was watching and cheering. He's like, and he looks underneath the bandage, and he's now got a gigantic tattoo on his arm that says death or dishonor. Now at this point, John is like partially relieved that he's not severely injured, but on the other hand, he's like, man, I got so hammered I got a tattoo and didn't even know it. Maybe I should tone it down just a little bit. Which works out because by this point in time, the party's kind of dying down. The Marines go into this like recovery type mode. They're kind of like out in the woods, living in barracks and tents, and they're just kind of hanging out until they get more orders. So that's fine, that's great, that's wonderful. The only annoying thing that's really going on at this point in time is in Australia, there's this